like. LB 670 had its hearing yesterday. I'm far away, still in England, and so I didn't have a chance to go, and I didn't have a chance to watch it as it was streaming. We're about 6 hours ahead here. But from what I have seen on social media, it seems like there may have been a few fireworks. I don't know. I'm just seeing some people very upset, others pretty mellow, so I'll be interested to hear a little bit more. We're going to take a look at some testimony that I did see posted on Facebook, but before we get to that, I want to cover what a tax credit scholarship is. And before we talk about what a tax credit scholarship is, first of all, what is a tax credit? So if you've been following this, you know it's the Revenue Committee, not the Education Committee, that handles tax credit scholarships, and that's because tax credits have to do with Nebraska state taxes. A tax credit is given to an individual or a business, and that means that they pay fewer taxes if they have contributed to something that the government has deemed a priority. So a tax credit is not money that ever goes to the government. It never belongs to the public because it's just somebody's paying fewer taxes for doing something in particular. So if you hear anybody saying, this is public money going to private schools, that's not true, because a tax credit is never money that was in government coffers. So there's no money being taken away, like you might hear. Again, it's when someone pays fewer taxes because they have done some financial thing that the government deems a priority. So what could those things be? Well, we have a lot of tax credits in Nebraska. I'm going to read off a few. We have angel investors for high-tech companies. That's a $4 million a year tax credit. That's for people who invest in high-tech companies. So the government in Nebraska has decided that it's a priority to get high-tech companies growing and developing, and so they're incentivizing people to invest in them. And if you invest in them, if you invest some of your personal private money in them, you will get to pay fewer taxes. That's how that tax credit works. There are Energy Star tax credits because our government has deemed sustainability a priority. There are Nebraska Micro Enterprise tax credits. That's a $2 million a year tax credit, and that is to help small businesses to expand. There is the Nebraska State Historic Credit. So the government has deemed it a priority to preserve historic buildings and homes. That's $15 million every year that we set aside for those tax credits for people to improve historic buildings. We have a beginning farmer tax credit. So an established farmer, if an established farmer offers land to a beginning farmer, then that established farmer gets a tax credit for doing that thing because that's contributing to a goal of our government, which is to help beginning farmers to get established. So tax credits are simply used to encourage some kind of behavior. The things I just mentioned are things that our legislators have deemed a priority. Things like historic homes, business, farming. Well, some states have deemed K-12 education a priority. And so what they have done is they have passed tax credit scholarship legislation. And so how this works is private people, individuals or businesses, will donate their own money to a scholarship fund, and that scholarship fund is used to give children scholarships to attend private schools, and then those people get a tax credit, meaning they pay fewer taxes because they donated some of their own personal money to this fund. It's a little confusing when we see people like from Open Sky or from NSEA just flipping out over public money is being sent to private schools. I've never heard anybody protesting the Nebraska State Historic Credit, which is more expensive than LB 670 would be by $5 million every year. Why do states pass tax credit scholarships? Well, there are two reasons. Number one reason is it gives more education options to low-income kids. And this is very important because there are kids who are just not being served well by their district public schools. It gives them other opportunities so that they can get what they need. That's number one. The second reason is it saves states money. So how does this work? How would the state save money if they're not bringing in as many taxes because they're giving a tax credit? Well, the reason is now we have outside money. We have charitable donations from individuals and businesses coming in to help pay for education. And it's kind of a double benefit because not only do we get this money coming in to pay for education, but we have children exiting the public schools, which in Nebraska cost about $12,000 a year per child. And they're going to an education option that is, in almost every case, far less expensive. The private schools in Nebraska are spending less than half that much. Over time, this saves the states a lot of money. Most states that are doing this by about the third year are seeing significant savings. For example, in Oklahoma, for every $1 that they don't bring in revenue because they've given a tax credit, they're saving $1.24 in the amount that it would cost to educate those children. Two reasons states are doing tax credit scholarships. Number one, more opportunity for kids, and especially for low-income kids. And two, it saves states money. What I want to do now is take a look at some of the messaging we've been seeing that is just utterly ridiculous and false. And we're going to start. This is some testimony that was posted online by the Teachers Union. This is Maddie Fennell. Let's take a listen.
LB 670 hurts public schools. Public school dollars used for private school scholarships would otherwise provide needed funding for our public schools.
Okay, first of all, this isn't true because there's no money that is set aside for public schools that would be going to private schools. The money is going directly from the people contributing the money to a scholarship fund to the children who use it then to go to a private school. This money was never designated for public schools.
Nebraska already ranks 48th in the nation for state support of K-12 education.
Okay, so she's saying that Nebraska ranks 48th. So what they're doing here is we have kind of a different way of funding education than a lot of states do. Most states fund it largely at the state level instead of the local level, and ours is more split. But we spend more per student than our neighboring states, who spend about $9,000. We spend $12,000.
Need to be investing in public schools, not diverting public dollars into private schools.
Again, there's no diverting of public dollars into private schools. A tax credit is using money that is from private donors, and it's going directly to these scholarship funds. This is never money that was in the government coffers in the first place.
Creating a private scholarship tax credit now would come at a time when our state school funding needs are increasing and when state funding of K-12 education has been constrained due to budget shortfalls. We ask the committee to oppose this bill and instead focus its efforts on meeting the responsibility to fully fund Nebraska's public schools.
I don't know what fully fund Nebraska public schools means. We already are spending much more than neighboring states. Got the numbers here. South Dakota is spending $9,100 per student, Colorado $9,500, Kansas $9,900, Missouri $10,300, Iowa $10,900, and we are up at $12,299. We already spend significantly more than all of our neighbors. Okay, so what I want to do now is take a look at some of the messaging we've seen over the last day or so, which is funny. Okay, this one is from the Nebraska Association of School Boards, and I believe I saw a tweet somewhere that they had some representatives testifying. Some of the things that they say that LB 670 is really expensive. Okay, so again, if you just think about how it works, what we're doing is we're getting more money for K-12 education through incentivizing people to donate money, just like we incentivize people to donate to historic buildings and high-tech companies. So we're getting more money into education. And then because these students are going from a very expensive way of educating, public school, to a less expensive way of educating, private school, that's further saving, so that's not true. And they also say, hurts public schools. Dollars sent to private school scholarships would otherwise be tax dollars for public schools. That's not true. Okay, here's another one. This is from Stand for Schools, which is a Buffett-funded organization. Let's see. first, let's see, they say this is a tax break for the wealthy and corporations. So there's nothing that says that only certain people, only wealthy people can use this tax credit. Anybody can use this tax credit until the money is gone. It says it will hurt important programs and services, including public schools. So that isn't true. They also talk about some pretty silly things like private schools will discriminate against children, which I think is pretty funny. Okay, then we also have, okay, this is not in Nebraska with the skull and crossbones. Okay, Senator Linehan's campaign to bring Betsy DeVos's voucher scheme to Nebraska is real, and it is dangerous for kids, taxpayers, and public schools. Okay, so they like to conflate vouchers and tax credits. A voucher is where money set aside for education can go to private schools. That's a different kind of school choice, which I have no problem with. I think we're tasked with educating all kids, and I don't think they all have to be educated the same way. But a tax credit scholarship is not what that is, clearly. And so calling LB 670 a voucher scheme is just misleading and silly. I don't even know who this is, Seeing Red Nebraska, but it's hilarious. The Billionaire Welfare Opportunity Scholarships Act LB 295 is now LB 670. Nothing has changed. It is still intended to pillage Nebraska public resources to feed the Ricketts family and other billionaires while also undermining our public schools. Wow. All right, so if you decide that you want to give money to a scholarship granting organization who will give that money to a low-income student to go to private school, you are feeding the Ricketts family and undermining public schools. This is brilliant. Okay, so then we have Open Sky, which is often cited as research by people in the public school monopoly. They are also funded by the Buffett's Sherwood Foundation, and they say that the tax credit would divert public dollars that can be used to lower property taxes and improve public education. So again, this is not diverting any tax dollars. This tax credit scholarships, it's money that is outside of the public. It's charitable donations going to support the educations of K-12 students. This is never money that was in the public coffers that could help do any of those things. So, and you know, as we've seen, our public schools already get much more money than our neighboring states. So, you know, if you're waiting for more money to improve public education, please just do it. I guess the key question here is, why don't these people interested in education want kids to have more opportunities? And why are they willing to mislead the public about the nature of tax credit scholarships? These are smart people. I mean, I guess it's possible that some of them might not know what a tax credit is and how it works. It's possible, but they're smart people, and so I'm guessing that there's a reason why they are trying to conflate different school choice options, why they're calling them vouchers, why they are, you know, I've even seen somebody on Twitter talking about conflating them with education savings accounts, which is another school choice option that some states are using. It seems like a deliberate attempt to confuse people, and you have to wonder why. So we're not going to get into that in this video. We'll talk about that in an upcoming video. I have a few ideas. I think this probably has something to do with it, but we'll look at that a little bit later. In the meantime, remember 2 reasons why states are passing and expanding tax credit scholarships. Number 1, tax credit scholarships give students more opportunities to find the best fit school, especially for low-income kids. Second reason, tax credit scholarships save states money. And, Maddie Fennell in that video is concerned, I guess, about our state's budget. This would be something that would help. So when you see these kinds of messages out on Facebook and Twitter and wherever else, now you know what a tax credit scholarship is and what a tax credit scholarship is not. And you can start looking past it like we're going to, as to why these educators don't want to extend more opportunity to kids in Nebraska. Thanks for listening. If you have friends who are confused about this, I know that the Sherwood orgs and the teachers union have really gotten people spun up with their propaganda regarding this. So go ahead and post this video or send it to friends who are worried about this, who think that it's some nefarious conspiracy. I've seen some pretty incredible posts and information. And although, I tend to laugh at it, I also really feel for the people who have been misled. So go ahead and post it. You can also take a look at our website, www.schoolchoicenebraska.org. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook and Apple iTunes podcasts. So thanks, and look for a new video soon.